So the next one is lawful basis. If you recall, I said the law said you cannot process any data without the consent unless you are allowed legally by the law. They also provide us some flexibilities. You can use the data without asking the data subject the consent. If you use that for the number one is for the historical document or archive of public interest, which is not that related to us, but we can use the personal data if it's for vital interest to preventing or suppressing a danger to a person's life or a body health. Also, number three would be most related one. We are allowed to use their personal data without asking for consent if it's based on the performance of a contract. Like for example, we can use the data name of the customers without asking for their consent to book the room, to provide their service because it's a contractual relationship. Or even we use that information for the pre-contractual relationship. That's the key things. If it is necessary for the performance of a contract, we are allowed to use that data, personal data. And number five is we can use that data if it's our legitimate interest of the data controller. For example, we can use the personal data to control the fraud in our hotels. Also, we put a CCTV in our premise. It's our legitimate interest to protect our properties. That's our legitimate interest. So we are allowed because it's one of the lawful basis to process the data. And the last one is number 6 is if it is required by the law. If the law state that we need to collect, we need to process, then we can do so without asking for the consent from the personal data, for the data subject. So basically for the general personal data, there are 7 legal grounds or lawful basis that allow us to use the data. First one is consent from the data subject himself or herself. Contractual basis, whether it's gonna buying a product or something, the service, if it's control. Okay, that's the lawful basis. We have vital interest, legitimate interest, legal obligation. With this lawful basis or legal ground, we can use the data, we can process the personal data. This is, for example, when you decide to buy a ticket, look at number 1. When you decide to buy a ticket for a concert in the web page, you will be asked if you want to receive any information regarding the concert, new parties. You check the box saying that you are happy to receive via email, text message, post, or that, which is an opt-in consent. This is based on the consent's lawful basis. We get the consent, so we are allowed to use the data. Number 2, your internet, gas, water provider holds your personal data because they need information to be able to give you the best service. They need to know where you live, your telephone number, your emails to be able to get in contact with you whenever necessary. They are processing the personal data based on the contractual basis. Number 3, at the hotel check-in counter, you are required to fill in the registration form asking you to provide your personal data, whether name, address, contact number. It can be a contractual basis too because we need to provide you the service. It's also be legal obligation because our immigration office asks the hotels to keep the record of the guests checking in. It can be both legal basis and also contractual basis. Number 4, the medical condition you hold at the hotel, like food allergy. You may share this information to the hospital in case of emergency. Like for example, guests have a food allergy and need to be hospitalized. You can share the information to the third party because you are allowed to do so by the vital interest basis. The last one, CCTV that you put in the hotels that operate in hotel premise to detect possible criminal act or threats to for public securities. That's our legitimate interest. We are allowed to do so without asking for the consent of the guests or of the personal the data subject. That's the lawful basis for processing personal data. This is an example. It's a seminar about the data protection. They also put the privacy notice, they said that they will have the recording, taking a picture or something like that. If you are not happy, I think that's become more commonplace now, right? When you go into the function, you start seeing this kind of like signage notifying you that there are some, even in the hotel lobbies, we are asked to put the CCTV in operation. That's one of the reasons that we need to notify the data subject so they know their personal data are being processed. But we didn't ask for the consent, right? Because we use the legitimate interest to capture the picture, yeah, in our own premise. But by law, we need to notify them so that they know. If you go to a shopping mall, so now many shops, they have the CCTV in operation for security or something like that. Okay, that's for general personal data. But for the sensitive data, the legal ground will be only 6 legal ground or lawful basis. If you want to process the personal sensitive data, you have to have, first one is ask for consent. There's only consent basis for the sensitive data. Second one is only vital interest for the lawful basis for the sensitive data. And also everything that is publicly available and the data subject allow in public that you can use, and the legal obligation, you can use you can process the sensitive personal data if it's legally required by the law. So that is one of the reasons that as a guest, even we already have a contractual basis with the hotel, we don't need to ask for their consents to process their personal data for providing them the service. But since their personal data contains sensitive data, like I have like food allergy, in order for us to provide them the service, we need to know this sensitive data. But by law, they don't have contractual lawful basis. So we have to ask for the consent. I think the only exception in our hotel operation is our spa, because there's a law that state that we need to collect the personal data of the guests coming in. So in that case, in the registration part, we don't ask for the consent from them, but they need to provide us the information. But for the fitness, if they want to be a membership, if you want to be a member of the hotel, they also need to provide some medical condition, right? But there is no law saying that you are allowed to collect. That's why in the membership registration form, we need to have the consent. We need to ask for the consent. But spa in Thai, we have the law that we don't need to ask for the consent. We use lawful basis for the spa guests. So this is the big picture. If you process the personal data, general one, you have 7 lawful basis. If you want to process sensitive data, your lawful basis will be reduced to 6. That's the big pictures.